Hey everyone, Shebim here and welcome back to another video here on FIFA 20. Now a couple of weeks ago I was sat here doing one of my career modes and I was thinking to myself, should I be training my players or should I be leaving it? Because I've seen a lot of arguments online both ways and I've never really been too sure what the best option is to do. Now, I've done a couple of weeks of solid research now. I've gone through so many forums, I've looked at every argument back and forth, and I feel like I do now understand the way the game works. I understand the pros and the cons, and I understand that it is very much situational of what you are looking at. So, today in the video I'm going to go through basically everything I've learnt, and we'll go through the different situations and you'll be able to see whether it is worth it for yourselves or whether you should be leaving it. Now, the main argument obviously for training is that it is the quickest and probably most effective way of getting your players' attributes or overalls up as quickly as possible. You'll see massive increases if you train solidly, and of course you can also use stuff from the catalogue to give you bonus double results in your training as well, so it is very much worth doing that way. However, the argument against training is that it can lead to very disjointed players. For example, I'm sure we've all seen on FIFA in the past, you'll have a player who has really high attributes in certain places and really low in others, and it leads to them being almost useless. You see it quite often with young strikers. You'll see really good technical attributes, but the physical side of the game will be absolutely awful. So you'll have no pace, you'll have no stamina, you'll have no strength, and it does make them very difficult to actually use. Now, the reason behind this is because everybody in the game has a set potential, and that set potential brings with it a certain amount of stat points that you can earn across the entire player. However, if you train, you'll be using all those stat points in certain areas. So if we look at what I've got in front of me here, I see Candlin. Candlin, is that? Yeah. So I'm currently training him up in attacking scenarios. So shot power, short passing, finishing, and attacking positioning. Now, left to his own devices, he might only get to about a 70 in all these stats. If I keep training him over and over again, if I just solidly train this guy for years and years, I could get all these stats to 99. Which means that I would have taken, say, 30 stats, so 120 stats altogether, that can no longer be spent elsewhere on this player. Which means that you're going to end up with certain other areas of this player being weaker than what they would do if you naturally let them grow. And it's the same here with Nolan. You'll see Perry, that's a good defensive one, there we go. So interceptions, defensive awareness, slide tackling, standing tackling. So the 4 stats you want this player to be very good at. But if you overly do it, you're going to take stats away from other places that could be very important, such as your stamina, such as your physicality, pace, and a lot of stuff like that. Even short passing is very useful for a centre-back, and you're taking away stats potentially from that as well. So that is the reason why people say not to do the training, because you can really lead to disjointed players. Now, of course, there's 2 ways to do this. Now, at the moment, I've been playing my games this year as a manager. So essentially, I have been simulating all of my games. Now, in that situation, you can train your players, because when the game simulates a game, does that make sense? When the game simulates a match, let's say that's probably the easy way of doing it, it doesn't take into account individual stats. It only takes into account the overall ability of the player, as well as the form, the momentum, the morale, all that sort of stuff. That's what it takes into account. It doesn't really think about how good their finishing is. If you've got a striker who's got 40 finishing, it doesn't care. If you've got a striker that's 70 rated, it does care. So it doesn't really matter if you are training heavily your players in a simulation style career mode. It actually does work pretty well, and it is a very quick way of strengthening players up to a point where they're good enough to play for the first team straight away. Now, if you are playing all the games, it's very much different. Now, once again, I would suggest you do training on players that you don't care about. So, for example, if we look at our players here, so we've got Callum Cockrell Molliet, is that? The Mollet, that's his name. So I've been training him now, we're in November. I've been training him since the beginning of the season. He's got up 4 stat points, and he's increased his value by 90%. We go across, we've also got Nathan Sharon there. He's got up 4 stat points as well. His value's gone up by 83%. Sam Perry here, his value's gone up by 100%. Jack Nolan up by 71%. And Mitch Candlin has gone up by 125%. So this guy's value has more than doubled since we started training him. And that's why if you don't really care about the future of a player, it's a great way of just improving the money you can sell them for. If we'd sold this player in the summer, we would have probably got about 150, 200k for him. If we continue training and sell him in January, we might get 750k for him now if we continue the training. We might only get a 500k, but that's still more than double what we would have done if we sold him in the summer. So it is a really good thing to do with players you don't really care about, that you know you're going to sell, and just for building up their value, not just for selling, but also if you want to use them as part of a make weight in a trade deal as well. It's a very handy way of getting their value up to a point where you can effectively have more of a weight on that deal and bring the price of the player down that you're trying to purchase. So that is a really good way to use the training as well. Another good way of using, well, we'll do this as a joint one. So if you have players you do care about and you really like them and you think they've got great potential for the future, then I would not suggest trading them very often. Like we said earlier on, they have a certain amount of stats, and those stats you really want to naturally spread around the different areas of that player. However, you can train them if you feel there's a weakness. So for example, like we said earlier, if you do have a 70 rated striker who has 50 finishing and you're thinking to yourself, every time I get in on goal, the guy fluffs it, then by all means stick him in the training and build up just that one attribute, but don't go over the top. I mean, it is great. You do really want your strikers to have a great finishing. That's what you really want. But again, you don't want to overdo it to the point where they're going to end up with really low physical attributes. So if you do have a weakness that you feel like you need to improve, then the training is very useful to really build the player to your style. And you can do that with a lot of things as well. I mean, if you have a player that you want to do something better, you want him to dribble more, if you have a wing back, you want to be more aggressive or be able to cross the ball in more, then train them in that and you will be able to use the stats that they get a bit better. But just beware that there's only so many, so you can't go over the top. Of course, the players with a higher potential, you can do more in. The players with lower potential, you've got less that you can really do to influence the individual stats. So it is worth keeping an eye on that. Now, the other way of looking at it is... what am I looking at? That was it, wasn't it? Yeah, I've just done both together. My brain just went completely dead there for a second. So yeah, in sort of conclusion, I think the training is very useful if you are looking to improve the value of a player for selling, or it's very useful if you're simulating the games. However, if you've got a player that you want to just develop, a player you know has a fantastic potential, then I wouldn't really bother. I'd let it happen naturally. Apart from just improving the certain stats that you feel are important. Like I said, with a striker, you want to try and get their finishing up. You see here, we've got Candle in here, we're training. We've got his finishing up to a 66 now, which is ahead of his natural, his overall ability. So as his overall now improves, if we stop training him, his finishing will continue to improve at a rate higher to his overall, which is actually pretty good. Also over here, you've got Sharon, who is 64 rated. We've got his slide tackling and standing tacklings now to a high 60s, defensive awareness to a 68. Again, they're important stats for this player, but we probably would stop training him now because we don't want to go over the top. And I think that is very much the case with the training. It's good to use in small amounts with players that you care about, but don't go over the top. With players that you don't care about, just go for it. Go mad. Go ham. Improve their values. See how much you can sell them for. I mean, now we look at it, like I said, we've probably made from the training so far this season, we look at this, let's just say that's 200k improvement. Let's say that is another 200k. That is probably about 60k. So what's that? That is 460. Add on probably another 100k, that's 560k. And another 250. So we've made like 750,000 by improving the values of these players over just from the beginning of the season to the beginning of December. So if we sell these players in January now, we're going to make 750,000 more than what we would have done if we just left them as they are. Don't get me wrong, at this level, it makes a big difference. At a higher level, like when you're Manchester United and something like that, it doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. But at a lower level, like in League 2, or if you're playing somewhere else lower level, it's very much worth doing, because just look at the value you can add to your players. It's absolutely crazy just what you can do. So yeah, that's what I've learned about training over the last couple of months. Of course, if you've got anything that you want to add to this, then please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm sure I may have misconstrued, or I may have misunderstood, or I may have missed just general things out on this video. Yeah, for me, that's what I've learnt, and I do feel like I understand it a lot more now, and I'm hoping you guys, if you didn't know already, are a lot more aware now of whether trading is more suitable for you or not. Like I said, let me know if I've missed anything down below in the comment section. If you have enjoyed this video, please do hit a like, and of course subscribe if you would like to see some more. I've been Shabby Gamer, thank you much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon for our next FIFA 20 video. Bye.